Imagine a man standing on the deck of a ship. The ocean is gray and wide. The wind is cold. He is holding a small bag close to his body. Inside that bag, a golden trophy. It is small. It weighs less than 4 kilograms. No one asked him to bring it. No one is waiting for him on the other side. Most people think he is a little crazy. But he is smiling because he believes in something. And today we follow the story of a game. Not just any game. The game that 6 billion people watch together. The game that a 17-year-old boy once played with a grapefruit stuffed into a sock. The game that a dog once saved. And the game that, every 4 years, makes the whole world speak the same language. If this story gives you something, a little calm, a little wonder, I would love for you to stay with us. Leave a like and find the subscribe button. Thank you. The man on the ship was named Jules Rimet. He was the president of FIFA, and he was traveling to Uruguay. He was going to watch the first World Cup. The year was 1930. 13 nations had agreed to play, but only 4 were from Europe. Rimet had begged them to come. He had written letters, he had made phone calls, he had visited football associations in person. Most of Europe said no. The journey by ship took 2 weeks. The Great Depression had just begun. Money was short. The world was tired. But Rimet believed in one idea. He believed that football could be a language the whole world could speak. That when nations played against each other, they would understand each other a little better. He had no proof of that. He just believed it. But where did this game come from? Let us go back, further back than Uruguay, further back than Jules Rimet, all the way to a cold Tuesday afternoon in Scotland. November 30th, 1872. A field in Glasgow. 2 teams walked onto the pitch. One wore dark blue, one wore white. England against Scotland. About 4,000 people came to watch. Nobody scored. The match ended 0-0. It lasted 90 minutes. It produced no goals, no drama. By modern standards, completely forgettable. But it was the first official international football match in history. Can you imagine? 2 nations had agreed to settle something on a football pitch, not with armies, not with politicians, with 11 players and a ball. The idea was small. The consequences were enormous. Football spread from Britain to Europe, from Europe to South America, from South America to Africa and Asia. Everywhere it went, people fell in love with it. A game invented by English schoolboys became the game of the entire planet. By the 1920s, football had reached the Olympic Games, and at the 1924 Olympics in Paris, Uruguay walked onto the pitch. A small South American nation arrived. Nobody expected them to do anything. But they played with a style nobody in Europe had ever seen. Fast, creative, joyful. The crowd at the Colombe Stadium fell silent. Then they rose to their feet. Uruguay won the gold medal. 4 years later, they won again. Europe was stunned. Can you imagine? A small nation from the other side of the world, and nobody in Europe had an answer for them. That small nation was Uruguay. Jules Rimet was watching, and he knew it was time. In 1928, Rimet stood up at the FIFA Congress and made his proposal. Football needed its own world championship, not part of the Olympics, something bigger, something that belonged only to football. The vote passed. The World Cup was born. 2 years later, that ship, that gray ocean, that small golden trophy in a bag, and Jules Rimet smiling, heading toward a dream. The first World Cup almost did not happen. Europe did not want to come. England, Germany, Italy, Spain all said no. The journey was too long. The depression was too deep. But 4 European nations finally agreed. France, Belgium, Yugoslavia, and Romania, whose players were chosen personally by their king. King Carol II read through the list himself. He chose who would go. Can you imagine a king picking his nation's football squad? 13 teams, all crossing the ocean by ship, all arriving in Montevideo, Uruguay. On July 13, 1930, a French player named Lucien Laurent received the ball. He hit a volley into the net. It was the first goal ever scored in a FIFA World Cup. Lucien Laurent was 23 years old. He scored the first goal in World Cup history. Almost nobody remembers his name today. Uruguay won the final against Argentina, 4-2, in front of 93,000 people. Jules Rimet walked onto the pitch and handed the trophy to the Uruguay captain. He was smiling. His crazy idea had worked. But the real lesson of that first World Cup was not who won. It was something else, something the tournament kept teaching, again and again. In football, the small can beat the large. The unknown can defeat the famous. No result is ever guaranteed. 20 years later, the world learned this lesson in the most dramatic way possible. 1950, Brazil. The Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, the largest stadium ever built, holding 200,000 people. Brazil was the host. Brazil was the favorite. The entire country believed with complete certainty that Brazil would win. The final match was against Uruguay. Brazil only needed a draw. People were already celebrating in the streets. But something was coming that nobody expected. Uruguay scored. Then Uruguay scored again. Uruguay won, 2-1. 200,000 people fell silent at the same moment. The silence spread across the whole country. It is still called the Maracanazo, the Great Maracanã Shock. Years later, the man who scored Uruguay's winning goal was asked about that day. He smiled and said, "Only 3 people have ever silenced the Maracanã: Frank Sinatra, the Pope, and me." The World Cup was growing. Every 4 years, new stories were written. But in 1958, one story changed everything. A 17-year-old boy boarded a plane to Sweden. He had grown up so poor that he practiced football with a grapefruit stuffed into a sock. His father was a footballer who never made it big. The boy promised himself he would be different. His name was Edson Arantes do Nascimento. The world would call him Pelé. At the 1958 World Cup in Sweden, Pelé became the youngest player ever to appear in a World Cup final. He scored twice. Brazil won 5-2. After the final whistle, Pelé collapsed onto the pitch, crying. His teammates had to carry him off. He was 17 years old, the best footballer on the planet. But the story of Brazil's golden era is not only Pelé's story. At the 1962 World Cup, Pelé was injured early. He could not play again. Brazil had lost their best player. Most teams would collapse. But Brazil had someone else. His name was Manuel Francisco dos Santos. Everyone called him Garrincha. It means little bird. He had grown up in poverty in the countryside. As a child, his legs were deformed. His left leg curved inward. His right leg curved outward. Doctors said he would never run properly. Garrincha became one of the greatest dribblers in the history of football. In 1962, with Pelé injured, Garrincha carried Brazil almost alone. He was unstoppable. He was joyful. He played as if football was the best thing in the world. For him, it was. Brazil won their second World Cup. Then came 1970, Mexico. The heat was intense. The pitches were dry, and Brazil arrived with something the world had never seen: Pelé. Garrincha had retired, but new names had come: Tostão, Rivellino, Carlos Alberto. 11 players who moved together like one mind. The final against Italy was 4-1. The fourth goal, Carlos Alberto ran onto a pass from Pelé. He struck it without breaking stride. It is still called the greatest team goal in World Cup history. After the final whistle, Pelé stood in the middle of the pitch. Tears were running down his face. A teammate put his arm around him. A photographer took a picture. That photograph became the image of the World Cup for a generation. The Jules Rimet trophy was given permanently to Brazil, the only team to win it 3 times. The world gave a name to what Brazil had shown them: Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game. My friends, not every chapter of this story is beautiful. There are darker years, years when the tournament faced things that seemed impossible to survive. In 1942, no World Cup. In 1946, no World Cup. The Second World War had swallowed the world. Stadiums became military bases. Players became soldiers. Jules Rimet's dream was on hold, and the trophy itself was in danger. When German forces occupied Rome, a FIFA vice president named Ottorino Barassi made a quiet decision. He went to the FIFA offices. He took the Jules Rimet trophy. He wrapped it in an old cloth. He placed it in a shoebox, and he hid it under his bed. For 3 years, as the war raged around him, Barassi kept that secret. He checked the box every night. He told almost nobody. A golden trophy. A shoebox. A man who believed it would matter again. He was right. In 1950, the World Cup returned. Then, in 1966, the trophy was stolen in London, just before the tournament. The whole country searched. Police searched. Citizens searched. 4 days passed. And then, a dog named Pickles was sniffing around a garden in South London. He found a package wrapped in newspaper, under a bush. Inside was the Jules Rimet trophy. Pickles became a national hero. He appeared on television. He received fan mail. The World Cup continued. Can you imagine? A trophy hidden in a shoebox under a bed. A trophy found by a dog under a bush. And yet, the tournament survived. Because the World Cup is not a building. It is not a trophy. It is not even an organization. The World Cup is what happens in the hearts of billions of people when the opening whistle blows. And nobody can steal that. Nobody can hide that in a shoebox. The tournament kept growing, and as it grew, it opened its doors wider. The first World Cup had 13 teams, almost all from Europe and South America. For decades, Africa, Asia, North America, they were on the outside, watching through a window. At the 1966 World Cup in England, all African nations boycotted the tournament. They had been given no guaranteed qualification spots. Their message was clear: we exist, and we will not be ignored. The protest worked. From 1970 onward, Africa had its own guaranteed places. In 1982, the tournament expanded to 24 teams. More nations, more stories. In 1994, the World Cup traveled to the United States, a country where football was barely known. American children watched those matches. They grew up. They built one of the strongest football leagues in the world. In 2002, South Korea and Japan co-hosted. Asia had its own World Cup at last. In 2010, for the first time in history, the World Cup was held in Africa. South Africa. The sound of the vuvuzela, a long, loud horn, filled stadiums around the world. It was not just a football tournament. It was a continent saying, "We are here. This game belongs to us too." And then came 2022. Morocco, a team from North Africa. Match by match, they defeated Belgium. They defeated Spain. They defeated Portugal. They reached the semi-finals, the first African team in history to do so. When Morocco beat Spain on penalties, the celebrations were not only in Morocco. They were in Senegal, in Nigeria, in Egypt, across the whole continent. Morocco's star player was Achraf Hakimi. He was born and raised in Madrid, Spain. His mother had cleaned houses in Spain so her son could have a better life. When Hakimi scored the winning penalty against Spain, he ran to his mother in the stands. He hugged her. A photographer took that picture. A son and his mother. Joy and tears and pride all at once. Millions of people around the world shared that photograph. That is what the World Cup had become. Not just a competition, a mirror. A place where the world could see itself. And now, my friend, we come to this moment. This year, 2026. For the first time in history, the World Cup will be shared by 3 nations: the United States, Mexico, and Canada. 16 cities will open their doors, 11 in the United States, 3 in Mexico, Guadalajara, Mexico City, Monterrey, and 2 in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver. The tournament will expand to 48 teams, bigger than it has ever been. Every part of the world will have its own place. Nations that have never competed before will walk onto the World Cup stage. New stories will begin. On June 11th, a referee in Mexico City will put a whistle to his lips. 48 nations will have traveled from every corner of the planet. Some will arrive as favorites. Most will arrive as dreamers. About 6 billion people will be watching. More than 3/4 of every human being alive on Earth. They will watch in living rooms and in bars, on phones and laptops, alone and with families, and with strangers who become friends for 90 minutes. They will speak thousands of different languages. They will come from cultures that have almost nothing in common. But at the moment the whistle blows, they will all understand exactly what is happening. Think about Jules Rimet, standing on that ship in 1930, holding a small golden trophy in a bag. He was not carrying a trophy. He was carrying an idea. The idea that football could be a language the whole world spoke. That when nations met on a football pitch, they came a little closer to understanding each other. He had no proof. He just believed it. 154 years have passed since that 0-0 draw in Glasgow. Since that cold Tuesday afternoon, his idea has been tested by world wars, by political storms, by every kind of difficulty the world can produce. It is still standing. The shoebox is open now. The trophy sits in the middle of the world, under 6 billion pairs of eyes, waiting to be lifted by a captain from a nation that might surprise everyone. It always surprises everyone. That has always been the point. And you, my friend, maybe you know this feeling too. The feeling of carrying something, an idea, a hope, a quiet belief in something that others cannot yet see. Maybe people have told you it is a little crazy. Maybe the road ahead looks long, like an ocean crossing, like 2 weeks on a ship with no guarantee of what waits at the end. Jules Rimet did not know what his idea would become. He just kept going. And the world changed because he did. That quiet thing inside you, the one that keeps going, that is not small. That has always been enough. The World Cup belongs to everyone. It belongs to a 17-year-old boy who practiced with a grapefruit. It belongs to a little bird with curved legs who flew anyway. It belongs to a man who hid a trophy in a shoebox and checked it every night. It belongs to a mother who cleaned houses in Madrid so her son could run onto the greatest stage in the world. And it belongs to the 6 billion people who watch and feel together. Thank you for walking this journey with me today, my friends. I am so glad you were here. Now, leave a comment and tell me, which moment from this story surprised you most? Was it the shoebox? Was it Pickles the dog? Was it Ashraf Hakimi running to his mother? I want to know. Until next time, take care of yourself. I will see you soon with another story.